Hi, welcome to OddTalk with Stephen Tikkanen. Last week I wasn't able to do a video, just life gets in the way sometimes. Last time we did any anatomy stuff, we were looking at the clavicle, the scapula and the humerus. Here I have the humerus and I have a new model, and if we have a look we can see that we have the forearm, the wrist and the hand on this particular model with the humerus attached up to here. So if you need to look at anything with the humerus that we covered basically last time, please go ahead and go and have a look at that. So I'm going to start off down here. So if we have a look at this model here, we can see that this is the radius just here, and then this is the ulna on this side. And we know that this is the radius because down here we have a thumb, okay? So that thumb and the radius go together there, you get your radial pulse in there, okay? So let's have a look at this radius first. So up here we have the capitulum, and then there's a neck, there's a radial tuberosity. And before I go any further, if you're wondering why there are these red and blue splotches on the bone, the red indicates a origin and the blue indicates an insertion for a muscle. We'll do those at another time. So as I said, we have the radial tuberosity here. We run down the radius, and just over here we come to the radial styloid process. Here on the ulna, we'll turn it around, and on the posterior side we can see that we have this olecranon process, okay, this big bumpy bit down here. And if you remember, here we have a trochlea, this section of the humerus, and the part of the ulna that wraps around that is called the trochlear notch or the semilunar notch, okay. The radius is able to supinate and to pronate because of its structure, okay, so it enables it to do that. There's a interosseous membrane that lines in the section here between the radius and the ulna. If you notice that the radius is very thick here at the wrist end, and the ulna is very thin. In fact, the ulna doesn't have anything to do with the wrist, whereby if we have a look at this proximal end, you'll notice that the radius is relatively thin and the ulna is relatively thick. So the ulna and your humerus go together really to make up your elbow joint. Around the capitulum, or the head, I should say, not the capitulum, that's my mistake. Around the head of the radius, we have a thing called the annular ligament. And that annular ligament holds the head of the radius in position to allow the pronation and the supination to occur, okay? So really they're the main bony landmarks. Last one here is the ulnar styloid process, right at the tip, just down in here. We then come down to the wrist, and we have a proximal row of 4 bones and a distal row of 4 bones, okay, and the easiest way for me to remember is Sally loves a party to the crowded house, okay. So we start with the proximal row of 4, and basically we start on the thumb side, and so we have the scaphoid, then the lunate, then the triquetral, and then the pisiform, and then the distal row of 4 we have the trapezium, we have the trapezoid, we have the capitate, and then we have the hamate. All right, so we have those. And then I don't know if you can really see it very well there, but you can see the carpal tunnel, okay, just going through there, but we'll look at that at another time in more detail. Today is just a bone introduction. So we have 8 bones that make up the wrist or the carpals. We then have metacarpals, and we have 5 metacarpals. So we have one here, number 1 is in the thumb, and then number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 is on the pinky side. So they're your metacarpals. In your thumb you have 2 phalanges, a proximal and a distal, and then in your digits, in your fingers, You have 3 phalanges, okay? So you have a proximal, a distal, and then a medial or intermediate one. So we have 3 in there. So that's for your index finger, your middle finger, your ring finger, and your little finger. And our thumb only has 2. So if we have a look, just at this section, this is why I use this model. So we have 1 big long humerus, and then we have 2 forearm bones, the radius and the ulnar. We then have 8 bones that make up the wrist or the carpals, 8. Then 5 that make up the metacarpals, and then 14 that make up your phalanges, your fingers. Okay, so we can see we only have 3 bones here, okay? But down here, this is where the majority of the bone is. And the reason why we have that majority bone is so we can move our wrist and our fingers and manipulate the world as need be. So all the bulk is down here. The bones themselves, why they're long and short and all of that, we'll do that another time. But that's the basic anatomy, bone anatomy of the of your forearm, wrist and fingers. And hopefully I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, just email me at coach@oddsocks.com.au. And I'll see you in a week. Bye.